Howdy, y'all! Welcome to my art room. Can't really see it on the back wall. I have a bunch of my things. Whoa, there you go. The microphone's in frame. There you go, see? There's a bunch of them up there. I thought I'd do a video talking about some of the stuff that I've painted over the last couple of years, because every time I post one on Instagram, a lot of people are asking to see them up close, to look at shots of them. This is where I keep all of my art stuff. I have a whole wall over here with like a cabinet that has paints and everything all in it. But I thought I'd pick down some of my favorites and go through them like piece by piece, what I did, how I did it. And if that interests you, great. If not, still watch. So when I started off doing this stuff, I got really into Warhammer as the main thing that I was doing. I wanted to paint Warhammers, I wanted to put them together. It felt like I had been doing Lego, and I thought I want something that's different that I can like spend a longer time on, because Lego I would finish in like a day. So I found Warhammer stuff and I started putting those together, and it felt like adult Lego. Not that Lego's not for adults, but it felt like a different version of it that I wanted to do. And this was one of the first ones I did. It's not the first one, but it's early enough. It's like within the first couple of weeks of me trying. Everyone starts doing Space Marines in the beginning to try and learn, but this is the first one that I tried really hard on. And honestly, it's not that bad. Like, looking at it now, I tried to add some like grime and like across the edges. I tried to make it look weathered, and the stuff on the back, like it looks really crummy, but for an early attempt, it was pretty good. Like the highlighting on the shoulders, I think I did a pretty decent job. I have no idea what this thing is called, but I liked painting him because it was simple. I liked painting the machinery and the Space Marines early on because it was all flat surfaces and I could just go in with one color, panel line everything, and then I was good. But yeah, that was one of the first ones. I have no idea what this guy's called, what chapter he's from. I'm sorry, I don't Warhammer. I just wanted to paint them. Every time I went into the store, they were like, what chapter are you doing? What army are you doing? I'm like, I just want to paint. I don't know how to play the game, and I don't want to play the game. And they're like, that's fine. Then I moved on to this guy, who looks really cool. He was really fun to do. This was the first time I really tried edge highlighting on stuff, because I wanted to see if it would work. I had never tried edge highlighting anything, basically just adding a shiny edge to everything. But you can see kind of on some of the panels up there, I added like a bunch of lighter blue to offset this blue. This guy's cool because his arm moves and this arm moves, even though the paint makes them all stiff. A lot of people magnetize these things so they don't have to do that, but I like that this guy turned out, especially like the finer details in there, like the yellow, the light and stuff in here. I thought that was cool, and he like opens up, and the stuff in here I was really proud of. I thought that turned out cool. Yeah, I just thought he was a neat little guy. Also very easy because he was just a big machine and everything was just getting a blue spray paint and then it's like, okay, now just add different colors to that. So it was fairly easy to do, because when I started off, I was like, I don't know what primers are. Should I be priming everything? And I had never gotten a piece that had to be glued together before. And I was like, I thought these all just fit in together. And then it turns out, no, everyone's using plastic glue to stick them all together. It was a big learning curve to get to this. Lots of mistakes leading up to it, but I think he turned out great. He's on my shelf as one of my prime pieces. Also, before I go any further, I want to let you guys know that my comic book series is still coming out. We're still making new issues of it all the time. It's very fun. The characters are starting to explode. We're putting a lot of lore in for like Jackie Boy Man. There he is on his foil cover looking like Waluigi, which I think is very funny. There he is again. We also have Marvin, which I fucking love this cover. The foil cover looks sick. There he is again. It's really fun to do. It's a fun thing to be able to work with some cool writers that take our ideas and turn it into a whole world. To be able to work with such incredibly talented artists, not only on the covers, but for all of the stuff like in the comic itself. I'm just really, really proud of it. I think you guys will really like it. And people have worked really hard on it, myself included, but also all the people, like all the artists that are working on it already, all the time in the background working on it. So it really meant a lot to me if you went and checked it out, bought some issues, tried it out for yourself, got involved in the universe. This universe is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go, not just in comics, but I want to make like a podcast, a TV show. as much as I can out of this stuff. We're adding like a video game to it at some point, all within this one universe. So if you want to be up to date on everything that's going on in it, you're going to want to get the comics. I leave a link in the description for where you can go get them. Bad Egg are the ones publishing it. It's the publishing company that Charlie, Moist Critical, put together, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish with it so far. So please go check it out. It would really mean a lot to me. And now I'm trying not to promote stuff that I haven't made myself and had a hand in. So that's why I'm promoting these, and I don't do it enough. Everyone's always asking me to constantly like promote this stuff and push it out. But because I'm not uploading as much as I used to, it's hard to do that, so that's why I'm here pushing it now, so please check it out. It would really mean a lot to me. Then I did this little guy. Is he a Primarch? Primaris? I don't know what he is. I really liked how he turned out. I did a little weathering on his cape on the back that you can't even see. But he came out pretty good for what he is. I like the details that I did on him. He has like these little tassels that come down. I think the thing that I'm most proud of on this guy is how clean it is. I think there's a lot of times when I use washes to like do a soldier and it ends up looking garbage or ends up spilling everywhere and not looking good. But this guy ended up really clean. Like everything looks good, and the little weathering on his jacket and his cape and his everything. It came out well. I'm proud of it. Then I was like, let's try out some gross stuff. Let's try out some like gross little guys. So I got some like infected, nurgly kind of dudes, and I started painting them. And this guy was the first one that I tried. I thought he ended up pretty good. I wanted him to be lighter, but I liked the different type of like skin tones and stuff that I was trying out. I think that those worked quite well. Trying to get like a blend from the tentacle up to his arm, I think was pretty hard for me to do, but I ended up doing it in a way that, like, I finished this guy and I was like, I think I'm on the right track to being able to do something. This is the first sort of organic one that I did. Everything else was like a person that was covered in like all metal or just had like one big black jacket on. But this was the first one that I did where I had to like blend layers of like flesh and metals and tentacles and infection and all that kind of stuff together. And then I moved on to this guy, which is not the color scheme that was on the box, but I saw one online that I really liked the yellow a guy did for his shirt. Is that a shirt? I don't know. I liked how he came out. I added blood to the hand. That came out really well. I did like a metallic meat cleaver on him. I thought it was cool. I liked it. Looking at it now, I'm like, it's a bit messy. And then I finished off with doing this guy, which is still one of the better small ones that I've done. I really love how the fire turned out on his stomach and like the blend on this arm, how it went from like his saw drill thing up to his arm. I think that turned out really cool. I like the little details on the faces. Like this came out super clean as well. Like this was one that I was doing and I was like, I'm really gonna take my time on this. I used some contrast paints on it that I hadn't used on any of the other ones, and I think this one is one of the cleaner ones I've done. And even like looking back on it now, this was still super early on and I was like, I'm proud of this. Like looking at it now, it's probably too clean for what this guy is, but I like how it turned out. But those were when I was still doing like small pieces. I was doing like all these little guys and I was like, I want to do something bigger. Like I want to try other things. Now this is one that I think I'm probably most proud of from like an early perspective, which is my Be'lakor, just because he was the biggest one I had done at that point. And even though a lot of like him here is all just like black and whatever, but all the little details on his wings and shit, I think turned out really cool. All the little like metallics, his face, the way his abs and everything looked, turned out really good. But what I'm most proud of was the base, because I follow Duncan Rhodes, a lot of his tutorials for this stuff, which a lot of people in the space know who Duncan Rhodes is. He is one of the guys who used to do stuff for Games Workshop, and he has a lot of tutorials on how to paint certain things and like step-by-step guides. So that's what I did with this. I followed his tutorial on it, but the way the base ended up, it had lava in it, which I was like, I don't know how this lava is going to turn out. And I think I did a really good job, but it was also the first time I tried doing a base. It comes with like all these rocks and stuff in it, like these are all plastic, but I added all the grass and all of these rocks along the side myself. And it was the first time I tried that. And I think overall, this is probably one of the best projects I've done because it took a lot of time to do it. I was learning a lot of new techniques. I think in terms of where I started versus when I finished painting him, the level of like what I learned the entire way, this is probably the one that I've learned the most on doing. And it was a very, very, very fun one to do. I enjoyed every single bit of doing this guy. And I was watching The Sopranos at the same time. I would have The Sopranos on my laptop as I painted. And I would go back and look at Duncan's step and I'd be like, okay, I have to do that next. And then I would like still watch The Sopranos as I did it. And I just took my time and had a really good time. I very fondly remember painting this guy. Then I have two that I did after this. I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for more big models. And I ended up doing, this is called Mortarion. I ended up doing him next, again, following Duncan's tutorial. It was really helpful. Isn't that guy look sick? I think he looked fucking cool. Is he like King of the Nurgles or something like? Again, I'm sorry, I don't know the lore. I tried like listening to lore about the guys I was painting as I was painting them and I kept zoning out, so I was like, I'll watch Sopranos instead. But this guy, he didn't end up perfect. I don't think any of them ever will. But he ended up better than I expected him to. Like when I was doing him and I was trying to figure out different bits, like the smoky bits on his back, they came out a little worse than I wanted, but I was very happy with the result. I tried to add like a little blood to his blade over here. You can't fucking see it. But what I was really happy about this one as well is that I also added stuff to the base. Are these bits that I added? Yeah. Whoa, I'm even cooler than I thought I was. I added like a bunch of rocks down here and grass. Grass really fills it out. But I also added these like little crystals that I bought online. And I really liked how that looked. And it kind of added to the vibe. I was like, yeah, these kind of look like magic and crystals and stuff. I didn't care if it was accurate or not. But I was happy with how he turned out. I liked doing, this was the first time I did anything with wings where I had to like darken the edge of the wing as I did it. And I think it was cool how it turned out. I'm very proud of all of these. Some of them, like, it's one of those things that you look back and see what you did back then and it's like, God, that looks like ass. But I'm happy with it because I learned as I went. And obviously if I did it again, I would be better at it. But in terms of what I could do at the time, I exceeded my skill. Like, I never thought I would paint something like this. I wanted something creative to do to like take my mind off stuff. I started doing this because of anxiety and being depressed. And I wanted something to kind of like get me in the zone that was meditative, that was something new to do and something to do with my hands. Because normally my way of escaping recording videos is to play video games or watch movies, and I'm like, it's still something with a screen. So I want to do something that doesn't have a screen involved. So I ended up getting into doing these, which was just very meditative, something to learn a new skill set. I've always wanted to learn how to draw, but that seemed like a harder task to do because I would have to come up with the design as well as the colors. So I was like, I'll start doing these and learn how to paint. And from where I started to where I am now, some of these pieces I've done, I'm like, I'm really fucking proud of these. I think these ended up way cooler than I thought they would. So I don't have a bad thing to say about any of them. There's so many points where I'm like, it's a little dirty. I like went over the edges on some of it. The colors aren't right, but I don't care. Then I moved on to what is from Bellacore. Mortarion, I was like, I didn't really learn a whole lot or upgrade my skill set, but then I did the great Unclean One. This guy was really, really, really fun to do. Something about painting his whole body green and then putting a wash over it. Something about the way I did it was just so fun to do. Again, shout out to Duncan Rhodes for the help on this one to get me through it, but I added a lot of details to it as well. Like, I love the way there's like layers of subcutaneous fat under here that leads down into this. It just looks really clean. I was so happy with the way this one turned out. And then I did the tentacle arm. That Duncan didn't do that in his video, but I added the tentacle arm and I was like, I think I want it to be blue. I go from dark to light blue. And at the time when I finished it, I was like, that sucks. That doesn't look good. I'm not happy with the way those tentacles ended up. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's pretty good. I don't know if it matches the color scheme of the rest of it, but I don't care. I really like it. And he's like a little face in his arm. Really cool. I had a blast painting this guy. It's one of the fonder ones that I remember painting. Like I remember every single step of painting this guy because I was so happy with doing it. And I think it ended up cool. Doing all the like pustules all over him. So cool. I forget this guy's name, but I was like, I want to do the biggest Warhammer model that I can. I don't know what that is. I'll Google it. I think that's why I don't remember what this guy's name is, because I just Googled it and then bought it without paying attention much to it. But it was this guy. Who, I mean, if you're into Warhammer lore and everything, you guys can put it down in the comments. But this was the last, like, Warhammer one that I did. And this one is nuts. Again, a Duncan Rhodes tutorial. I'm not too happy with the way some things turned out. Like, a lot of the stuff on his little heads here, they ended up a bit darker than I wanted. I wanted the colors to pop a bit more. And I wanted a bit more vibrancy in some of it. I don't think vibrancy is realistic, but when I realize when I'm painting stuff, I don't always want realism, I want color. But there's a load of bits of them that have like fire in between or like lava bits that are like orange in between his plates. And I wasn't really that happy with how that turned out, but I was doing it piece by piece. Like I did all of the body and then I did the little guy on top. And then when I put it together, I stood back and I was like, it's pretty damn good. It's hard to appreciate it when you're in it because you're seeing every little piece of it and every bit of it that's going wrong. But then when it's done, you're like, that's great. I had a good time doing it. And the base, I was really happy with. I put a lot of effort into the base to make it pop out. It's a lot of just like stones and bits of slate and skulls, but I added a lot of bits to it to fill it out, and I think it ended up cool. I was like, I think where he is and what he's doing, he's like, everything's burnt all around him, and it's kind of like a deserty kind of vibe, but really cool. I like his tail, I like a lot of it. But the thing is, I don't think I learned anything doing this because I realized I was following tutorials for all of them. And I was like, I want to get outside my comfort zone a little bit and start doing stuff that doesn't have tutorials to it. So that's when I started getting into 3D printing. So I bought a 3D printer and like an alcohol bath and a UV cure thing. And I started printing out my own stuff, which I'll show you. So the first one I did was the Dancer of the Boreal Valley from Dark Souls 3. She was hard to do because I didn't know how to do her cape. Like she has this trailing cape that goes on behind her that is in the game. It's kind of like wispy, it's ghosty, it's see-through. It's like a veil, but any of the pieces that I like saw online, I was like, it always looks kind of blue. And I was like, yeah, I like that sort of color scheme. So I ended up doing that for her. And I like how most of it turned out. Like the armor looks pretty good. The armor's pretty easy because I just use metallic paints to do it, and it just kind of like does the work itself. But the thing I'm not too happy about is the swords, like the way the swords ended up looking. I was like, I want that to look like ice. Kind of looks like ice, not really. I want that to look like fire. Kind of looks like fire, not really. The point comes across, but I feel like I could have done a lot better. But all of this was done with the Army Painter speed paints, which I didn't really understand how contrast paints work. They're more transparent than regular paint, so I was like, I'll try those out. And I like dry brushed with them and everything, and I'm like, I didn't use them properly. I didn't use them to the best of their abilities. And I feel like if I just used plain paints for base layers, I would have gotten a better result. But having said that, it was the first thing I 3D printed myself. See how I cut my own accent off? I was gonna say 3D printed, and then I stopped because I knew people would point it out. That's the problem with having an accent on the internet, is that everyone will point it out, and I don't like when people point out stuff about myself like that, so I end up changing it, which is why I don't sound Irish anymore, and I hate. But yeah, I think it came out pretty good. It's something that I like now in hindsight, but as I was doing it, I was like, I don't know. And God bless Evelyn, she was always like, that's incredible, that looks amazing, I can't do that, that looks so good. I'm like, thanks. Then I did Vivi from Final Fantasy IX, who is one of my favorite characters in all of video games, if not my favorite. The thing that was special about this to me was that I really wanted a Final Fantasy IX character. I thought Vivi would be a good one to do, but I am so happy with the choice of colors on this guy because I had no tutorials to follow. I was just looking at reference pictures and I just had my paints, and I think that's my biggest thing with doing anything creative with colors is that I have a hard time picking the right colors because I have very mild color blindness, but also I'm not good at color coordinating or seeing like shade differences and things like that. Sometimes I have a hard time seeing what's lighter and what's darker, but I think I nailed the colors on him, like the little green on his pants, the blue jacket and the brown hat. I think all of those are perfect. Like I'm not one to toot my own horn either, but I think they turned out perfect. The only thing I'm not too happy with is his eyes. Painting yellow on black is hard to get the opacity the way you want, and also the eyes on the chocobo came out really fucking bad. I still don't know how to do eyes on characters. I still avoid doing them wherever I can, and I just put like red or yellow dots, and I hate how the chocobo looks. He looks really goofy and cartoony, but overall, extremely proud of this one. This one's on the background of my videos. When I record upstairs in my proper recording room, he sits right behind me every time because I'm so proud of it. Then the next one I did, huge undertaking, was Malenia, the goddess of rot. That version of her. It's not just the regular version of her, it's her rotted and doing her thing. She's supposed to have a sword. It broke off because 3D printing, I didn't know the right settings and it became really brittle. But in terms of the wings, I had a really hard time figuring out what color to do her wings. I was looking at reference pictures, I was looking at art other people had done. I had a really hard time, like none of the pictures made it look good. Like her in-game is very desaturated and her wings are like a weird grayish, brownish, light ashen color. It's supposed to look like it all rotted and weird and dusty, and the vibrancy and all the butterflies and everything is like, it's not as vibrant as it could be, so it was a hard time seeing the colors for me. But I think the way the wings ended up was good in the end. I think I'm happy with the color choices I went with and like the different types of paints I use and like seeing her red hair go through the rest of them. I think it ended up pretty good. Good enough that I'm not looking at it going, ooh, what am I doing? The only thing I'm sad about is that her sword broke and I keep trying to super glue it and it doesn't work. But she came in like 6 pieces to glue together, and that was... I stopped 3D printing after this because I realized how much time it was taking. Also, I have to keep it in the basement because the fumes are toxic. And trying to use the resin for 3D printing is really annoying. It's toxic to animals, it's toxic to humans. Unless it's set by UV rays, it will just stay liquid. You're not allowed to pour it down a drain. You're not allowed to do any of that kind of stuff because it'll kill like wildlife and get into the water system and everything. So I got really tired of 3D printing really quickly. I had it in my basement, which was too cold, so it wouldn't print anything properly. I had to heat everything up beforehand and then keep a heater on it all the time, which electrically was just killing our electricity bill. So I was like, it takes like 9 hours to print like the smallest thing. So I was like, fuck this. I don't really want to 3D print anymore, but she was a good last one to do. So then what I ended up doing was buying 3D prints. I realized I could go to Etsy and people would have STL files, but they would print them out already and ship them to you. So they had better printers. They printed them to a higher quality than I would. They had more detail than I would. They made them lighter than I would. And I didn't have to go through any of the headaches of using resin and heaters and all that kind of stuff. So I would just buy 3D prints on Etsy, which also supported them, and then get them sent to me and I would put it together and paint it myself. So I got this guy. Look at me fucking skulking in the background like a rat. He was just called the Butcher or something on Etsy. And I was like, he kind of reminds me of the Great Unclean One. So I was like, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna paint it myself with the same techniques I learned from the Great Unclean One. And then this turned out really good. This guy's heavy because the 3D print that they did was just intense. It's not hollowed out or anything like some of the other ones are. But I really like the way his face turned out, his wounds. I kind of learned how to blend them a bit better. The like bloody hand in the hook. I added like blood to his cleaver. I think a lot of this turned out really, really good. And I was very proud of it. But the thing about 3D printing as well is that I didn't have to base anymore. It all came with like details in the base. So he was a fun one to try out as like a first 3D print that I bought online and got, and he was very sturdy, and I was like, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna buy some more and try those out. Which now, for the next few, are gonna be insanity. You've probably seen them on the shelf behind me already, but I got this Guts model. So you can see my thing went from like, I'm gonna paint like little guys, little small Warhammer dudes, and then within like a year and a half, I ended up on things this size because I realized I like painting the big guys. I think it's more forgiving for mistakes because when they're smaller, I feel like I have to put more detail into them for some reason. When they're bigger, I don't know, it felt easier, it felt more fun to do for me, but I really like how Guts turned out. His face is a little wonky. I also despise painting skin. I don't have a good skin method yet. I think I did good with this, but I don't think I did great. He ended up a bit darker than I wanted, which is fine. Like, he still looks good, but I don't know, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. But all the metallics on him, there's blood everywhere on this. I have a really good coagulated blood. I think I got from Green Stuff World. No. I got it from Green Stuff World. That's really good. But also I struggled a lot. This came in like 6, 7 different pieces, maybe more. I struggled a lot to figure out what to do with the Beast of Darkness on his side. I tried to make his eyes glow the way I wanted, and I was really happy with it when I had it done. But looking at it now, I'm like, it looks a bit weird. It needs something. It needs some sort of like gloss. No, not gloss. It needs some sort of like varnish to go over it. Or some sort of like wash or some sort of filter to go over it to make it blend a bit better. I really don't like when my paints end up chalky and you can really like tell that they look like chalk when they're done. I like a more satin, matte, I don't know what type of finish I'm thinking of, but overall, this piece was very tricky, but I think taking it piece by piece, doing it layer by layer, doing the little guys in the bottom, doing Guts on his own, doing the sword separately, doing the Beast of Darkness separately, and then when I got them all into place together, I was very happy with the way it turned out. There's a lot of stuff that I learned doing it, a lot of stuff I could fix, but this one took me like 2 weeks to do on and off, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. And this one's lighter than the other one, despite being way bigger. But they get even crazier. This isn't even the craziest thing I've done. This one is nuts. This was also a thing that I got off Etsy. It was just a dragon. I don't know what it's called, but it reminded me a lot of the Gaping Dragon from Dark Souls 1, so that's why I got it. But holy God, was this a process to try and figure out what to do. I was very intimidated by this one. I didn't know what colors to do on him at all. I knew I wanted him to look like the Gaping Dragon, but in Dark Souls 1, the arena you fight the Gaping Dragon in is kind of like tinted blue. The lighting in there is a bit bluer, a bit cooler. So I was like, what if I did him a bit blue? And I started that and he looked kind of gray. And I was like, yeah, that looks good. But the more blue I added, the more I kind of liked it. So I just kept adding more blue, and then I was like, yeah, that looks good, actually. I'm just gonna make him blue. And then it just made sense to make the wings red, because blue and red go really nicely together. They're a good contrast or complement or whatever, I don't know. And then the base, like the base was all these rocks and everything are already done. All I had to do was paint them in. So it was really nice to do. It was a lot easier than I had anticipated it being. But I loved how he had like all of this viscera coming out the front of him, and I added a ton of blood. Like I wasted half my tub doing that. I literally just squirted it in, and I was like, what better way to show how blood is gonna like drip down on everything than just to let it drip. I was like, let's just say that this stuff like burst out of him already and it dripped down. And I did a ton of layers on this guy, and he ended up really cool. He's very solid. He's one of those things that's, I don't know, I'm very proud of. I think he looks really cool all together. He's like really cool eyes up top. He's like a bunch of them. But yeah, very proud. I thought I was bleeding. I realized like here I have blood all over my hand, but it's not. It's some of the stuff on that guy is still coming off. Which is good, because it's supposed to look like blood, and I thought I was bleeding. Okay, last two. These are the biggest ones I've ever done. These were nuts to do. And I can't believe they ended up as good as they did, because I didn't think I had it in me to do them. But the first one is Artorias from Dark Souls 1, which this thing is just monstrous. He ended up really cool. He's deceptively easy to paint. I think a lot of the stuff that's on him looks harder to do than it was. He was literally just base layer, wash, dry brush, done. And that was kind of it. And I can't believe how well he turned out. This one is also exceptionally light. Like I said, they hollow out a lot of the pieces that they do sometimes when they're bigger, and I think that works way better because when they're heavy, it usually means they're quite brittle and they break really easily, but this guy's kind of like flexible, which was really nice. I just love the colors I picked, like the blue was so nice. I loved adding like a layer of kind of abyss across of it with a wash and built up that gradient onto his back. The chainmail looks good, his armor looks good. Everything was just like, I could teach anybody how to paint this. This is one of the easier things I've painted. It took me an afternoon to do, but the result is like so good. It's deceptively easy to do. And I'm so happy with the way it turned out. This is the first one I did where I was like, if I got this as a thing, like a collector's item from a game, I would be really happy with it. I think that I did a remarkably good job on this, and I'm not letting anyone take that from me. I think this one turned out really cool. And now, the one that probably took me the longest to do, but ended up being the coolest, was this pyramid head that I did. Again, I was just searching on Etsy and I found people that did like video game stuff. And I was like, I want to do Pyramid Head. He seems fun to do. I love Pyramid Head. I love Silent Hill 2. I think this isn't very accurate to Silent Hill 2. I can't remember which one he has in Silent Hill 2. Does his mask look like that or is that from the movie? Is his blade like that or is that from the movie? I don't know. I really like the colors I picked for this. I like how this turned out. I like the gradient. I did the same thing where I have like a bit of black going up. The skin drove me nuts. I think it turned out really well, but it was not an easy task to do. It took me a lot of layers. All the gore kind of coming out of him was really cool. But the thing I'm most excited about for this one was I wanted to try out a rust effect. I wanted to try out Rust and see if I could do it, and I was looking up a bunch of tutorials on how to do Rust, and again, Duncan Rhodes, he had a video going over a ton of different Rust options, but the one that stood out to me was U-Rust, which actually rusted things. It's like a thing that you can get with a bunch of paints that add texture, and then over that you put two chemicals with each other, and it creates oxidization. Or oxidization? Yeah. And it oxidized the piece and created actual rust. So there's no metal on this, but there's actual rust all over it. So these doors are all actual rust. Bits of his helmet are actual rust. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. You put it on, and then you would just kind of look at it and then be like, okay, I hope that looks good. And it's a bit of a pain in the ass because you can't always get a consistent reaction out of it. But I did it and I was like, let's leave it for like an hour. Went outside, did something, came back, and I looked at it and I was like, that looks so cool. There's almost no nuance to the way I used it. It was just flat over everything, but Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill in general is a very rusty look. But it turned out awesome. Put a wash over that, it ended up looking really cool. I could do more detail by doing like all the bolts on the door, adding a bit of grime to them, seeping down, but I was like, if I keep doing that, I'm going to be doing it forever. I'm going to keep adding details, I'm going to keep finicking with it and not be finished and not be happy, and then I'll end up overdoing it instead of just quitting while I'm ahead. But he turned out really cool, the little bloody hands everywhere. This is probably the piece that I'm most proud of because I tried every single technique that I had learned, as well as a few new ones, and I think it looks incredible, and I'm very happy with it. But yeah, that's it. Those are all the pieces I've done up to date. The Artorias one is actually the newest one I've done as of last week. So I haven't tried anything new. I do have a Godfrey that I'm gonna start doing, like Godfrey from Elden Ring, that came from the same company. I realized as I was recording this, I broke his axe with my chair. Great, I can just super glue it back on, but cool, good for me. And he comes with Sarosh on his back that only has one arm right now because I glued it all together and then realized I can't slot it in, so I had to break his arm off and hopefully glue it back on, and you can't tell the difference. But I'm very excited to try that one, but that one's gonna be an undertaking that I need to spend some time doing. So if you're wondering what I've been doing in my spare time over the last couple of years, it's been mainly that. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really fantastic hobby to do. Sadly, it's incredibly expensive to do. Any of these 3D prints for that size is over $100 to get off Etsy, and then shipping on top of that. All the paints and everything are just incredibly expensive to buy, even some of the cheaper ones. But when you're getting paints like that, you don't really want to cheap out on it. Brushes are expensive. Warhammer figurines are really expensive, so the bar to get into the hobby is quite high. But I think if you have the time, if you can afford it, if you want to do something creative, I highly recommend it. It's very therapeutic, and it's helped me kind of get over a lot of my own anxieties and get out of my head and do something with my hands a bit more practical, learn a new skill set. And now I'm able to do whole models that I just get off the internet, and I just sit down and I paint them myself because I know what I want out of it. So I didn't think I would be able to do that. If you showed me that Artorias or that pyramid head a couple of years ago and was like, yeah, you'll be able to paint that in a couple of years if you stay consistent with it, I would have laughed you out of the room. So I think it's very inspiring for myself to see those and then go, okay, if I just spend that amount of time learning how to draw or learning how to write or learning how to act or learning how to do anything, I could probably get pretty decent at it. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. Thank you guys for watching. This is a long video, but for any of you who are interested in it and wanted to know what I've been up to and what my stuff looks like, that's it. I don't think I'll ever do one where I paint in real time and show people the process or anything, because I think it's a very personal thing for me to do. And I think people have a lot of opinions on how things are supposed to be painted or how they should be painted or different techniques and stuff. And I want to learn myself as I explore it. I don't want people to just throw information at me, because I don't know, it's just how my brain operates. But thank you. Thanks for watching.